Hello, you're listening to Resonance FM on 104.4 FM and also resonancefm.com. My name is Therese Bann. I work for British Music Information Centre and I'm presenting a series of programmes on Sound and Music's first audio DVD CD release called Recovery Discovery. This features 4 tracks by electronic composers over the last 40 years, including Jonathan Harvey's Mortuos, plango, vivos, voco from 1980, Sir Harrison Birtwhistle's only electronic piece, Chronometer, from 1971, Javier Alvarez's Temazcal from 1984, and Mira Kalex's Nunu Wadudu from 2008. Last week we looked at the main piece on this album, Birtwhistle's Chronometer. This week let's focus on the 3 other pieces, starting with Jonathan Harvey.
Composing is a bit like approaching a house in a mist. It gradually comes into focus. Bits become clear, other bits are vague. So it's very interesting to try to think what the first idea is, but it's very elusive. Gradually the piece formed itself. I think in this case I started out with an idea of sections, and looking at the partials of the bell I found 8 prominent partials, so I assigned one partial to each section, and with each section I had slightly different techniques, so it's a kind of variation form on the material viewed from different technical angles in 8 sections. And the whole lot, from the beginning I wanted to be an equal balance of boy and bell, so they share the percentages among the 8 sections. Sometimes it'll be 30% of bell and 70% of boy, or vice versa. And yes, the whole concept is really an unfolding of one thing, a bell object. Bell is just one sound, a slice of it, if you like, lasting 1 second. And then over 9 minutes, that structure, partial by partial, unfolds, and at the end you hear it complete again. So there was that initial idea of the bell being the structure in time. It came about in 1980 or a little before, when I was extremely interested in the new Earcam, and I visited it, even at the stage when it was just a hole in the ground, but there were already some offices in operation nearby. And so I got to know some of the people there and said how interested I would be to look at what research they're doing and what facilities they offered. And eventually they came up with this request for me to write a work there. And that's what started me thinking as soon as I got the request. They asked for a tape piece of about, I think they said 12 minutes. In fact, it turned out to be 9 minutes, but the big inspiration was the experience of having my son, Dominic, the choir boy at Winchester Cathedral, and this was a wonderful musical experience to listen to the choir in that huge building, the biggest Gothic nave in Europe, I believe. Wonderful sort of resonant building, and the very fine and famous set of bells, which would often be pealing simultaneously with the choir rehearsing before evensong. So going and visiting my son singing in that choir was bringing me very close to the choir master and the choir and the bells and the building, and also very close to my own childhood memories when I was a choir boy. So all this amounted to a powerful conjunction. And when I had the commission from Earcam, although I'd had some experience in electronics in Princeton in America, about 10 years, nearly 10 years before, I'd been working mostly in analog studios, not in digital studios like Earcom, and I felt fairly intimidated, I suppose is the word, or apprehensive about the enormous complexity of these huge, the huge computer in Earcom, which filled 3 or 4 times my living room in space. And to work it, of course, one needed a lot of help and advice, and one had to learn how to program. So this was all quite nervous-making, and I decided to use what was in my mind at the moment, which was the experience of Winchester Cathedral, and writing some things for the choir, as I had done during those years that Dominic was singing, and taking the Dominic's voice and recording it, first of all recording quite a lot in London, and then going to Earcom itself and recording some final notes and sounds from him in Earcom itself, and on the other hand taking the recordings of the big tenor bell, the lowest bell, a huge construction, which is, I forget how many tons, and one has to record that at considerable difficulty, and you can't really be very near it when it's ringing at full pelt, because you just go deaf. And anyway, we got a recording and took these recordings to Earcom, and that was the basic inspiration, the boy's voice and the bell's voice. And I was honestly, being a Stockhausen enthusiast and lover of his ideas about integration of distant objects, I think a boy singing and a bell striking are very distant objects, and I wanted to integrate them. So using computer programming, one can do that. One can morph between them. One can mediate between 2 different types of acoustic object. The bell itself flies sound, because when it swings at full, as it were, full volume, the sound is thrown out of the cathedral at the belfry windows with tremendous speed and force. So you hear a kind of Doppler effect of vibrations as the pitch changes, as it comes out of the bell directionally, according to which place the bell is pointing at. And then I had also the idea of Dominic flying in the space. In fact, I envisaged the whole concert hall or place of performance as inside the bell, and the bell seems to be all around the audience because the speakers are all around the audience, and the bell is sort of split up into different partials which occur, front, left and right, or back, left and right, all around the audience. Parts of the bell are present, so the audience does seem to be engulfed by it, and people have often said they feel that. And within that spatialization, which is more static, the boy's voice moves around. It's not spatialization as we do nowadays, which is immensely sophisticated and refined, but with the sort of panning techniques one had in 1980, I was moving the boy's voice around this space inside the bell.
Jonathan Harvey's Mortuos plango, vivos voco from 1980 is a quintessential part of the British electronic repertoire and a beautiful tribute to the British choral tradition, its many cathedrals, and the bell ringing associated with them. The piece, which was made at the Earcom studios in Paris, sets up a dramatic interplay between the deathly pealing bells recorded at Winchester Cathedral and a lone chorister's voice, the composer's son Dominic, singing a text found on one of the bells, revealing the contrasting forces of life versus death and is, according to the composer, symbolic of the battle of the human spirit to penetrate the intimidating world of the machine.
Well, this was very much a Christian work. The whole idea of, really since very early days of Christianity, which you can see in the Greek Church and the Russian Orthodox Church, the importance of bells in their church building goes back even before Christian medieval times. But bells have always been important in Christian worship, and of course singing. The cathedral seemed such a sacred spiritual place. I wanted to evoke the extraordinary sacred sound of this bell. I think, it's felt by the people of Winchester, some of them obviously, because it's extremely domineering. All around Winchester you can hear this great tenor bell ringing, and it has a ghostly sound in that the spectrum, it's based on a C, but there are a lot of high partials of the spectrum of F, a fourth higher. And this gives a sort of resultant F above middle C, which is not actually there in the computer analysis, but it's a kind of vibrating sound. It's very eerie, that kind of thing. I call it a ghost sound because it's not actually findable by acoustic analysis, but you hear it very clearly. And I feel that is a very powerful sort of image of the power of the bell. Of course, the bell itself is a meditation instrument, or the fact that it has a brilliant attack, complex, very harsh for a split second, and then it dies away and gets gradually quieter and quieter and more peaceful, and then after a really long time there's just this beautiful hum note at the bottom. It's like a meditation descending into a very peaceful state. And I'm sure these bells have often been used for that. In the Russian Orthodox Church, the types of bell ringing have very definite functions which are centuries old. What each bell is used for and what each style of bell ring is used for. So I thought of the bell in the spiritual community, what it represents, and of course the one of the functions which is written on the bell, Mortuos plango, I lament the dead, is to do with funerals and burial and death. Another one is vivos voco, vivos ad preces voco is written on the bell, which means I call the living to prayers. So I like the idea of calling. And there's also a third function, which is about time, which is used when it strikes the hour. The big bell is used to do that. And horos avalantes numero, which means I count the fleeing hours. Again, a hint of the shortness of life. It's really very simple in this case, I think, in that the voice of this lovely little boy, Dominic, and also the familiar sound of the bell helps a lot with machine music. After all, it doesn't sound like a machine, it sounds like a bell and a boy. But a machine is there in the background, sort of pushing things around and turning things into each other and affecting transformations. And as I say, the spirituality of those sounds at Winchester is extraordinarily powerful. So I hope to use that, really. I mean, the bell comes with a great history behind it, doesn't it? And the chorister's pure voice also comes with a great history behind it, a history of spirituality.
This programme was made by Therese Bann and Stina Hasse for British Music Information Centre and Sound and Music.